Good morning, everybody. Uh, it's great to have a chance to talk to you and touch on a subject that I think is going to be probably one of the hottest topics of 2023. And I think it's our friendly US government that's going to make it so. We're going to talk about why worker classification is so critical now in the gig economy. I'm Bruce Sentai. I'm with Atrix Software. I've been involved with payroll tax reporting for over 20 years. So we've dealt with over 200 taxing authorities, and including the IRS, and of course the Department of Labor is involved in a number of things we do as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about worker classification, and in general, worker classification, the type that we're going to talk about, is whether or not a worker is an independent contractor or whether they are an employee. The simple fact is that with the new economy and with the advent of COVID, a huge number of people are now in the workforce designated as independent contractors. It's really important to make sure that those classifications are correct, because there's a whole lot more people doing it now. And litigation blew up in 2022. We'll talk about it. Most of that litigation involves very, very large enterprise size companies. So we won't spend a lot of time on it, because I'm assuming most of the people attending and viewing this will not qualify as Uber or Lyft or so on. But it can create some confusion and resentment among employees. And the potential for fines and penalties in this particular situation where you have misclassified an employee can get very big, depending on how long that person has been misclassified and how much you were paying them, and all of those kinds of things can pile up to a great deal of money very quickly. As an added benefit, the federal government, if the federal government believes that you misclassified these people on purpose in order to avoid taxes, you can get jail time. So the changing litigation out there, the largest settlement that's ever happened is FedEx had to pay, paid a settlement of $228 million to a group of their employees. I believe that was in 2016, so it was a while ago. The recent court cases have actually been a victory for most of the employers involved in those suits. Again, I don't think they qualify. Most people in here are not going to be part and parcel of companies the size of Grubhub and Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and FedEx and a number of these other large delivery companies. Amazon has had suits filed against it. But most of that litigation centered around the right to arbitration for these gig employees, or these what were designated as contract employees, because the companies were engaging in interstate commerce. And what the courts have unanimously decided is that although the company at large is engaging in interstate commerce, the individuals who are designated as independent contractors are not engaging in interstate commerce. They're simply delivering food or items from one location to another, typically in their own in a location where they live. The workplace issues can be a number of them. Weird thing is even if they're independent contractors, they're probably having interaction with your employees, and inevitably somebody's going to ask them how much they're getting paid. And it's not atypical for an independent contractor to receive an hourly rate that is higher than probably your standard employees, for obvious reasons. You're not paying taxes for them. They have to pay their own taxes. You are probably assigning them in short, specific cases so you can manage those expenses, and you're not providing any benefits. You're not guaranteeing overtime. You're not paying partial or all of health care. You're not investing in unemployment insurance and those things. However, the simple fact is when one employee hears another person who seems to be doing kind of the same job is making more money than they are, you can have an issue. And then the perception of the workplace between independent contractors who are working in-house or working remotely. Typically, independent contractors do not work in your building, but they might. The perception is that they have it easier because nobody's bothering them. They're not under the same kind of constant pressure to perform because, you know, I'm in here every day and my boss is telling me to do this and do that, and nobody even talks to that guy. He just gets to go over there and do his work. So there are some things that can bump up in the potential as potential workplace issues if you decide to classify somebody as an independent contractor. No, that's not the one we're looking for. Sorry about that, folks. Oh yeah, it is. Sorry, it is the one I was looking for. The DOL is definitely going to turn up the heat this year on misclassification. On March 4th, 2022, a district court in the Eastern District of Texas vacated a department's delay rule. That delay rule was implemented by Joe Biden on the first day in office. The DOL was just about to release what they had determined to be their final declaration on what an independent contractor is, what qualifies as an independent contractor. The Democratic Party and Joe Biden believed that those regulations were too lenient and eliminated a lot of the workforce from being able to receive benefits and protection under the Fair Labor Standard Act. So they put a hold on it and said, you need to rethink this and take a look at something that was put together by California called the ABC test. So that happened on March 14th. On March 14th, that was vacated, and within a week or two, the DOL announced that they're going to implement new rules, and they're going to be released in 2023. You know, penalties for worker misclassification, as I talked about before, are depending on what set of rules you look at, the IRS or the DOLs, and we'll cover that later. Will determine whether the action was unintentional or intentional or fraudulent. Obviously, if they are willful or fraudulent, you, in addition to fines and penalties, you could end up with criminal penalties. You could end up in jail. The DOL does estimate that as many as 30% of workers in the United States are now classified as independent contractors. And they believe that as many as 30% of employers are misclassifying at least some of their employees. So it is going to be a huge focus of the DOL. Compliance is going to become a tremendous issue for them, and they're going to come after it. So I'm going backwards here. Good grief, folks, I'm sorry. Not my first day. So what are the workers' classifications? Obviously, the ones that we are most common are full-time, part-time, temporary, on-call, those types of employees. What we're talking about here are independent contractors. And that is the most common misclassified employee, because what an employer may think of, because your employee is now working from home, they don't have direct supervision, that they're an independent contractor. That's probably a mistake. And most likely, if they were performing the same jobs that they were doing before, just because they're not in your building and you don't have somebody standing over their shoulder does not mean that they're not an employee. So the difference between the IRS rules and the DOL rules they're significant, but the two sets of requirements are designed to do the same thing. They believe that employers are seeking to avoid FLSA requirements of paying benefits, unemployment withholding, with the withholding income taxes, overtime, and other expenses that are associated with full-time employees. And so they often misclassify those employees as independent contractors. The IRS rules are fairly straightforward. Again, they focus on three things: the behavioral control, financial control, and what is the nature of your relationship. Although those seem like very simple statements, the guidelines that follow behind them are quite complex. But essentially, behavior control: are you telling this person what to do? Are you steering them? Are you telling them exactly how to perform their job? Do you have financial control? Do they have other ways of making money? Is the only way this individual makes money is from the work they do for you? Do you pay them or reimburse them for tools or travel or supplies? They need to be completely independent of those types of things if they're going to be classified as an independent contractor. And then what is the nature of the relationship? Are you providing benefits? I mean, if you're providing benefits to this person as an independent contractor, in all likelihood, they're not an independent contractor. Do you have a written contract? You really should have a written contract that describes exactly the nature of your job or of their job and of your relationship. Or is it just a handshake? You were working in the building, now you're working from home, so now you're an independent contractor. Those things have to be defined, and those things have specific requirements under the IRS tests. There is a website you can go to, and you can track each one of those questions and what you need to ask below those questions in order to get the answer you need. The DOL test is very similar. It talks about the relationship, the financial control, and the nature of your relationship with that employee. They're all going in the same direction. They want to make certain that this person is in fact an independent contractor and not an employee. DOL also has a website explaining all of these items and all the questions you need to ask about each one of those individual things. They are very tedious and very involved. My recommendation to you is very simple. If you have independent contractors, and that is a recent occurrence, and you've brought these people on board as kind of part of the gig economy or as part of a reaction to COVID and those, get legal advice. Have somebody that is in that business look at it and give you an idea of either how to modify your relationship in order to keep that qualification as independent contractor, or whether or not you need to reclassify them as an employee. The ABC test is where the DOL is going. This test was actually created by the state of California, and not to be too judgmental, but in all honesty, if you are following legislative or regulation guidance for employee-employer relationships, and it comes from California and it's based on California's ideas, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be in favor of the employee at all costs. So again, the same kinds of questions come up. How much instruction and oversight do you give this worker to complete tasks? Their essential rule is you can't tell them how to do their job. You can tell them what needs to be done, and here's the nature of the job, and here's my contract. You're going to work from this time to this time. We need you to do this specific task, but how they go about doing it, it cannot be under your direct supervision or control. Is your business at risk if this worker doesn't produce what's expected of them on time? Now that would seem like, well, if a contractor does that, I could be in trouble too. But what this is leaning towards is, are these people performing tasks that are part of your core business? An example might be someone who is a programmer, and this person came to you and wanted a job, but they live in Texas and you live in Arkansas, and you said, well, you can work from home, and we can give you tasks that you need to do, and we need you to do some programming for us, and you designate them as an independent contractor. You can do that if that person goes away, it doesn't completely disrupt your business. But if they're doing everything at home in Texas that your other programmers are doing in your building in Arkansas, the likelihood is they are not an independent contractor. but that they are, in fact, an employee. Again, a set of questions that'll be involved in that, get legal advice, but that's the real crux of it. If you're hiring someone to paint your office, that person's obviously a contractor. They have their own business, they do painting. You hired them to come in and paint your, that's not part of your core business. If that painter doesn't show up, you can pick up the phone and get a different painter. And so it doesn't adversely affect your business. But if they're doing things that are core business aspects of what you do, their likelihood is they're an employee. And, again, now, does that worker have an independent business? If the only income they make is what they make from you, and they are entirely dependent on their relationship with you, in all likelihood, again, they do not qualify as an independent contractor. California wants them to have their own business location, their own business license. They want to have multiple clients, other sources of income, and those are the kinds of things that the DOL are going to begin to really focus in on. So what's next? This is what the DOL is going to focus on. Like I said, President Biden has mandated and told the DOL that he wants them to create new regulations regarding what an independent contractor is based on that California ABC test. In addition to that, he's given the DOL instructions to begin to get aggressive in their pursuit of employers who are misclassifying employees as independent contractors. Again, I mean, the source of this angst and the source of this concern is twofold. One is a little more altruistic than others. The first one is, of course, they will say that they are looking at the rights of the employee. They feel that if you unfairly identify someone as an independent contractor, you're not paying your fair share, you're not providing benefits, you're not contributing to unemployment insurance, you're not ensuring minimum wage requirements and or overtime pay. So there's a concern regarding that. There is also the other side of it is the federal government feels, and state governments in particular feel, they're losing out on revenue because employers are misclassifying employees, and so therefore they're not contributing to unemployment insurance pools. They're not doing withholding and paying matching funds. So two things. They feel like they're going after their constituents, which are hardworking employees, and you're taking money out of the hand of the federal government, and neither one of those make the federal government respond well. So they are going to come. Those new regulations are going to come this year. The courts have essentially mandated that they get this thing straightened out and they get the answers together. That's really where we stand with independent contractors versus employees. Get advice. Make sure you're following at least some of the ABC guidelines and have a fair argument. If you have a fair argument, if you are in fact it is determined that that person should have been an employee, you will at least avoid the fraud or intentional deception side of those kinds of things, because you can say, I had this argument, this is why I thought they were an independent contractor. So protect yourself. Because this is part of the gig economy, I wanted to review just a little bit about what the gig economy is in case you don't know. So we'll talk a little bit about what the gig economy is and how it came about. The gig economy really in large part occurred after COVID, when people were unable to go to their jobs disappeared entirely, or they began to work from home and found out, hey, I have a set of skills here that I might be able to get some more money from somebody else to do it. So in most cases, it's designed to be a flexible, temporary job for individuals to provide themselves with additional income. So again, if you're a graphic artist and you work for someone full-time as a graphic artist, but you're working from home and you realize, I'm done at 4 o'clock with these guys, I could work, a few hours in the evening for someone else because I have these graphic artist skills. I could work as an independent contractor or whatever, and I could make some extra money. That's how the gig economy kind of came into being. It generally involves smaller, low-level tasks. So it's not executive level stuff. They're not decision making. They're not building budgets. They're not doing those kinds of, they're doing tasks, specific tasks that are either project related or shift related. So you can use gig employees to, or gig workers to fill in shifts or to complete specific projects. Again, if you're classifying them as independent contractors, those should be defined in a written contract with these individuals. Could be temporary. You just have some seasonal work that needs to be done, and this person has the skill set that needs to be done, and they're willing to work as a temporary or gig employee. In some cases, it's physical labor, freelance content writers, industrial consultants, even delivery drivers is a big one. And it's designed to create supplemental income. The pros and cons for employers, the pros are really simple. It's very difficult to hire people right now full time. It's hard to find workers. So finding someone with a skill set that works for the kinds of tasks you need done can provide you a pool of flexible workers that can fill in specific shifts. That you just hire them for night shifts or just for weekends, or to do specific things, maybe some routine or mundane tasks that the rest of your full-time staff kind of turns their nose up on and doesn't want to do. Again, as independent contractors, these have to be very well defined and they should be written. It can reduce your costs because, of course, as an independent contractor, once again, you're not paying unemployment insurance, you're not withholding taxes, you're providing a 1099, you're not providing benefits. So it can save you some costs, and it can allow you to do some of these things more quickly, in that you might be able to find someone in that gig economy with the set of skills that you need. If they have those skills and you can just bring them on board and they can start working right away, that can be very helpful. The cons are, as independent contractors, all of the things we talked about in the first part of this presentation. You need to make sure you're not putting yourself at risk, that in fact they do qualify as independent contractors, and you're handling the paperwork. You have defined contracts and a clear definition of work, and that you understand that what their role is in fact an independent contractor. If they are independent contractors and they're looking for just some fill-in work, they may not be quite as responsible or reliable as your full-time or steady employees that are more obligated to your company. And then in some cases, they may just be a body you're trying to get into building, and they don't have the specific skills that you need. They don't know how to run a particular piece of equipment, or they don't know how to do a particular task. So you may have to do some training before they can become really productive as an independent contractor for you. So that's the nature of the gig economy. And the big deal here is, folks, the DOL is coming at you. Make sure you understand exactly the nature of any relationships you have with workers that you've defined as independent contractors, and make certain that you get some advice. Make sure you're following this information. As soon as the DOL comes out with their new regulations and we understand exactly what that is going to look like, we'll certainly have another presentation. We'll certainly put together an English version of what those regulations are, because as we know, most federal regulations are unreadable and difficult to understand. We'll try to cut through some of that nonsense and cut to the chase and give you some sound advice and information on what exactly the new definition of an independent contractor is going to be. If you have any questions, by all means, contact me, Bruce S. at atrix.com. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to source it out to somebody, or if I know the answer, I'll give it to you. If I have a resource that you can go to, I'll provide it, and we'll see if we can answer some questions for you. thank you very much for taking some time. Sorry for a couple of hiccups in there. And please join us for our next presentation next month. And enjoyed having all of you. Thanks.